Hello again. I am back to do another reaction. This time I'm going to react to a video that compares the size of US trucks to EU trucks and explain the difference in size and why they're manufactured at a different size. Without further ado,
Have you ever wondered why the semi-trucks in Europe are available with these massive engines, such as the Volvo D16K with 750 horsepower
I
and
did notice there's no diversity of
3,550 newton
cabs,
meters,
cab shape, or cab design.
and the Scania V8 770 horsepower with 3,700 newton meters? Where in the US, engines only have a maximum of around 605 horsepower and 2,780 newton meters, even though the trucks are so much bigger.
I'm trying to remember
There
if
are
I learned
several
Newton
reasons
meters
why
in
truck
physics
engines in
class
Europe are
or not.
somewhat larger and more powerful than in the US. So, let's take a look at them. Horsepower versus Newton meters and pound feet. Before explaining why the European trucks have these big engines, let's make it clear that trucks really don't need that many horsepower. Rather, it is the amount of torque the engine is able to produce that is important to haul the massive loads. Torque is a rotating force produced by the engine's crankshaft. The more torque produced, the greater its ability to perform work, which is measured in Newton meter in EU and as pound feet in US. Trucks in EU versus US. Before comparing the engines, you might have noticed that there is a big difference in the cabs of the European trucks compared to the US ones.
Yeah, I noticed, but the US seems to have a
We actually
diversity
made
of
an entire
cabs,
video
or
showing
cab
and explaining
design
why
and
they are
shape
so
to
different,
me.
so click on the link in the description and find out why. The engines in
Okay, that's something to look
US.
at.
The four major engine manufacturers in the US are PACCAR, Detroit, Mack, and Cummins.
Uh, I just noticed that they share Packard. I don't know how you pronounce it. And Cummins. Cummins makes Packard engines. Packard just slaps the sticker on it, kind of like how some computers are. They get their parts from different suppliers and they just slap the badge on it. Same with Packard. Their engine is made by Cummins, and then they just slap that Packard engine. Just a tidbit there. Carrying on.
Also, a lot of Caterpillar truck engines are driving around in the US, but they stopped manufacturing on-highway engines in 20.
Now I just learned this. I always thought Caterpillar did like more construction type thing, or it reminds me of Kubota for some reason. Well, not exactly, but kind of. I always thought it was more construction utility based, and I didn't know they made truck engines. It's new, something I learned just now, actually.
10 due to increasing emission regulations. The most sold engine in US is the Detroit DD15, which is a 14.8-liter inline-six engine with 505 horsepower and 1,750 pound-feet, which is used on the truck brands Freightliner and Western Star. Most of the US engines are around 12 to 15-liter engines with around 400 to 550 horsepower.
Now, one thing I did learn about that Detroit DD16 engine, I learned that actually, if there's an error, it automatically sends data to the customer support to let them know what type of error the engine or what type of problem the engine is having. That's a huge plus, especially when you're on the road. I didn't know that. I guess that's new an advanced design actually, at the expense of sounding like an ad for the DD16, which I'm not, but they have the way it's designed. They recovers heat from the exhaust and transfer that potential power, or what they call bonus power, back to the engine to kind of in a way recycle the power. What I mentioned earlier, how the engine error in the DD16 sends at the expense of sounding like an ad. I'm not trying to be an advertisement. I'm gonna talk about the other ones, but that DD16, it basically has a virtual technician. Is what I mentioned earlier. How it sends data to the customer support. It kind of diagnoses your engine problem to let you know what's going on with it before the mechanic gets to it.
The US truck brands use engines from separate manufacturer, like PACCAR, Detroit, and so on, whereas European truck brands each make their own engines.
That would seem expensive.
This video has been done in
I
collaboration
would
with
know. Let me skip
NordVPN,
this long
the
advertisement.
fastest VPN.
And we are back after that long advertisement. Well, it was long to me. I'm not sure if it was long to you. I tried to kind of carry you past that.
The engines in Europe. In Europe, the brands MAN, DAF, Scania, Volvo, Renault, Iveco, and Mercedes-Benz are available, each with their version of a truck engine. DAF drives with a PACCAR engine, and Volvo, Mack, and Renault also share engine parts and technologies.
I noticed, that Daimler Group does own a lot of brands. I saw that. I thought initially they had just had a partnership with Mitsubishi. I didn't know they owned 34% of Mitsubishi Motors. I had no idea. I just learned that as well. Of course, we know they own Mercedes-Benz. I do remember when the Mitsubishi and Plymouth had similar, basically the same car. And it was the same car. You just slapped the Plymouth logo or badge or the Mitsubishi badge. Just something I noticed.
Also, Detroit is owned by Daimler Group, who also owns Mercedes-Benz, and the Traton Group owns both MAN and Scania, which are coming with a shared engine at the end of 2024. So, the different engines probably share more components and technologies than you might think, and the difference between them may not be that big at all. The European engines range from around 440 horsepower to 640. However, Volvo and Scania are separating from the other brands with their massive engines. The Volvo D16K, which is the world's strongest inline-six engine with 750 horsepower and 3,550 Newton-meters, is available on the Volvo FH models.
I think, yeah. Even though Volvo makes trucks.
Also an option on the European market is the even bigger Scania V8 with 770 horsepower and 3,700 Newton-meters, which is the strongest truck engine produced in Europe. So, now you know a little about what type of engines the EU have and the type US have. But we still don't know why it is that these big engines are not available on the US market. So, let's get to it. Weight rules EU versus US. One of the reasons that US trucks don't have an engine with over 600 horsepower is the simple reason that so much power is simply not needed. The federal weight limit for a semi-truck in the US is 80,000 pounds or 36 tons, which a 500 horsepower engine with 2,500 Newton-meters easily pulls through the American roads. So, because of the weight rules, there is no need for bigger engines, as they can do the work needed with fewer Newton-meters and horsepower. But it's a bit different in Europe. There are 27 different countries in Europe, which of course results in different rules.
One thing I don't get, before I continue, they have 27 different countries with different rules. So, what I don't get is, and I didn't get an explanation with this. When you cross the border, do you cross knowing the rules? And I've been thinking, okay, what if you cross the border between 2 or 3 countries? They have 27 different rules. So, how do you follow the rules if you're passing through 2 or 3 different countries? I don't know. Maybe they don't. Maybe they use rail, like U.S. uses rail as well to transport. But my thing is, I'm just curious, like can you actually follow all those rules, different rules, if you're traveling through 4 different countries, 4 different rules? How do you comply? I don't know the rules specifically. Maybe there is a way to where you cover all of them. Maybe some of them similar. I don't know. But I thought it was interesting. I didn't really get clarification on that.
In Sweden, a truck can have a maximum weight of 60 tons, or in some specific cases up to 90 tons. In Finland, the maximum weight is 76 tons, and they are experimenting with 90 tons. And in some cases, even more. Most of the countries have a maximum weight of around 40 to 44 tons. However, many of the countries again have special rules which allow an increase in the weight depending on the type of driving, vehicle, and number of axles.
The hardest
with such high total weights, combined with steep climbs in the terrain, means that a bigger and more powerful engine is needed to pull the heavy load up the hills. Here, it may simply be a necessity with an engine such as the 16.1-liter Volvo engine with 750 horsepower and 3,550 newton meters, or the even bigger 16.4-liter Scania engine with 770 horsepower and 3,700 newton meters, as a smaller engine simply cannot haul as much weight. Landscape and infrastructure, EU versus US. The roads and landscape are very different in EU and the US. The US is actually a relatively flat country. There is of course also places with hilly roads and big climbs around in the US, but the big roads have few climbs and are generally wide and long. Here it is a bit different in big parts of the EU, where in many places there are only minor roads, with much larger climbs, and where the elevation of the land can change several hundred meters. These increases, combined with the high total weight of the trucks, places a great demand on the truck's performance, and more than 3,000 newton meters may therefore
My
be
neck
necessary.
hurts. I need a massage.
Also, the US is much larger in area than the EU, actually over twice the size, where distances can be too long or too heavy for the trucks. Why larger and heavier cargo is transported by train, as it can be a faster and cheaper solution, depending on the size and weight of the shipment.
I wonder if it's the same
It is
in
therefore
the
a
EU
combination
with all
of
those
weight regulations
different
and the
weight regulations.
landscape in which the trucks drive, which is the reason that the European trucks can be selected with the bigger and more powerful engines than in the US. Reputation and appearance. The last aspect that has to be taken into account is that the truck drivers in the EU care a lot about the reputation and appearance of their trucks. They customize their trucks, paint them in unique colors, and modify
sharp.
the truck a lot to make it stand out. It is important
like
for them to have a nice looking and unique
Optimus
truck, which
Prime
also
in the
includes
first
driving a truck
Transformers
with
movie.
a lot of horsepower, even if they might not need the extra power. There are many V8 enthusiasts who also just love the sound of the Scania
Sharp-looking
V8
trucks.
engine and are willing to pay more for this. If you want to see why Scania created the V8 engine and has kept it through all these years, click the link in the description. Also, there's a big shortage of truck drivers in both the EU and the US, and when drivers are hard
That's
to come by
another
and
topic.
want a good-looking
I've
truck with
heard
a lot of
truck
horsepower,
drivers
it's a
say
way for the
some
haulier
things
to lure
interesting, but
drivers to their
I
company.
won't cover that here.
We hope you learned something new and liked the
I did.
video.
I sure did.
Thanks for
Yeah, I learned a couple of new things, and I learned that which companies own which companies. I don't know. I think they make their own engines. I always wondered with cars. I know they order parts. Sometimes some parts are international to make their domestic products. But from what I understand, the trucks, they make their own parts for the engines. They don't seem to import parts. I could be wrong, but I didn't get that with the companies mentioned. I tried to look it up and I didn't see anything about importing parts to make the engine, whether it was the EU or the US. Just something I thought I would point out. Anyway, thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. Please, please, please like and subscribe. And thank you very much.